Welcome to the Brad and Taylor Show. Today we have Justis Heppner.
You're listening to The Brad and Taylor Show, a podcast that inspires entrepreneurs to pursue their passions. We're sitting down with some of the best to learn how they got started and some lessons they learned along the way.
How's it going?
I'm good. How are you two?
We're good.
We're
We're glad to
doing
have you
good.
on.
Great. Thank you so much for having me. I really appreciate it.
Yeah. So tell us a little bit about what you do.
Well, I am a wife to my high school sweetheart, and I'm a mother of two. But my main role outside of those is I'm actually a realtor for Berkshire Hathaway here in Bay City, Michigan, which keeps me pretty busy. Real estate's always been something that has been on the forefront of my mind for a really long time. And 8 years ago, I made the jump into it, and I love all things home and interior design. So that's what led me to this. And outside of that, my husband and I also own Populous Coffee, which is a coffee roaster here in Michigan. And then we have two cafes, which is super helpful because I need all the coffee.
Like we need caffeine.
I know.
Yeah.
That's awesome. So
yeah.
when you were really little, do you know you were going to be an agent and have two coffee shops?
So absolutely not. I feel like most kids, at least what it seems like, they always have like somewhat of an idea of what they wanted to do or like a role. Like I want to be a doctor, I want to be a nurse or something like that. And growing up in a small town, realtor was definitely never a job description that like a parent would be like, you're going to be a realtor or, interior design. But I always knew like within me from a very young age at 5, I would rearrange furniture at like my grandparents' house and like move all their picture frames on their bookshelves. And I would like deep clean. I would take like scrap lumber and build like houses outside. So as I got older, I knew that that was definitely what I was passionate about. And I needed to find a way that I could do that within our market since it is such a small town. And real estate seemed to be the best fit because not only do I get to help people in one of their biggest financial decisions of their life, but I also get to kind of understand the home and all the mechanics and then help them guide through like DIY projects since we've redone 3 homes personally.
Nice. When you how many? You said you redone 3 homes. When did you tell us about your first one?
So we bought our first house at the age of 23, and it was this cute little historic bungalow in the historic district in Bay City. And it had good bones. And obviously, at the age of 23, our budget wasn't like huge. So we had to get really creative. And looking at the home, that it had a decent roof, the foundation was great. It really just needed a lot of cosmetic work. So we just went in and did, what we could at that age. And we ended up being there for about almost 5 years. We brought our first son
Wow.
home to that home. And then we sold it. And then we bought a even older home on Center Avenue in Bay City. And that house was a 1900 Queen Anne Victorian cottage. And that home was our labor of love, like almost the home that broke us, but it turned out beautiful. And now here we are, 2 kids later, and we're in our 3rd home. And it's a 1965 mid-century modern in the South End that was completely untouched when we bought it.
Huh.
I've seen your TikToks about the current home that you're in. It is so cool.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah, you guys doing a great job keeping the authentic nature of the era.
Yeah.
Really
And honestly, I feel like that's so important to keep in homes because anyone can come in and just kind of rip everything out and then put cookie cutter cabinets in and the same floorings and everything. And I think that when these homes were all designed, like builders used to take their time and put a lot of neat details into them. So we shouldn't be replacing them. So I just learned to kind of work around it.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's awesome. So let's talk about your first transaction as an agent. Were you actually, let's back up a little more. Did you, when you started out in real estate, did you join a team or did you kind of do it solo or what'd you do?
So Yeah, I actually did join a group when I first started, and I think that that is super beneficial when you're starting out because you're not going to be really that busy. You'll have like your sphere of influence of people, friends and family, but outside of that, like if you don't have any kind of guidance other than just like your managing broker, I needed to join a team that was actively doing a lot in the region. So it gave me exposure to open houses. It gave me exposure to lots of different transactions that would take me years to kind of put under my belt. And so that definitely helped a lot.
That's awesome. So tell us about your first transaction. How'd that go? Did it go smoothly?
I actually do remember my first transaction. I feel like it was pretty cut and dry. I just remember it was for one of my friends. They were buying a home out in the country, and it was like literally perfect for them. And I wrote the offer and I asked my group leader, to kind of look over it, but he was tied up for hours.
Huh.
And I was petrified because I'm like, I need to send this purchase agreement.
Right.
And I just want somebody to rough over and look over it for the first time before I actually send it off. And, I just needed to have the confidence in me because I had already gone through the classes. I passed the state boards and I knew what I was doing. And so I submitted it and it was a very clean, easy deal. Everything was like all the T's were crossed, I's were dotted, and she got the house.
Yay.
Awesome. Hey,
Yeah,
that
that's
works out good.
exciting.
That's awesome. So, are you still with a team right now, or are you doing it solo?
I am solo now, which was a very big decision. And I left the group probably about a little over 3 years ago. I branched out and went solo, and has nothing to do against a group setting. I think
Yeah.
that groups are super important, and they're really great. It is nice to have that backup of extra people, in case you're busy, that you can be like, hey, can you like show this house for me? So that gets a little tricky, but overall, I just felt with my personal experience with redoing homes, and I had actually sat on the historic district commission for a while in our hometown, that my brand was different. And I wanted that to be more focused on what I do versus a group, that none of my sales actually get registered under my name. And so I made the jump, and it was kind of scary at first,
Yeah, I
but
bet.
it was the best decision that I could have made.
That's awesome. So you've been doing it 3 years now, solo, you said, right?
Yeah,
Nice.
little over 3 years. I think we're pushing into 4.
Nice. That's awesome. What
Yeah.
is some of the best advice you've ever gotten?
So, the best advice in real estate, I think, that I've ever gotten was when you first start out, you need to make sure that you have like a secondary income coming in, because it does take so long to build up that little black book of, people and clients. And usually they say 2 years. I actually did not do the 2 years. I left my full-time salary job pretty much right away. And then I started doing like consulting for restaurants after. So I still had some income coming in between. But that is honestly probably the best advice because it's helping you network. You're still talking to people. Because if you just go to, I'm just going to go full blown into this, and you don't have any other people that you're around daily
Yep.
to talk to, you're not going to be growing your sphere.
Yeah, I totally understand that because um fly a jet for a living, and like I was built this business while I was actually flying that, and like the second I made the leap to just doing this full time, I remember I'm like, wait, I used to have people I talk to all the time. Now I actually got to go find the people to talk to. So it was like,
Yeah.
I totally can relate with that. What did you do before? What was your salary job?
So we actually moved back from Los Angeles. Bay City is our hometown, but we moved out to LA for a very short window. And then when I came back, we opened up Populous, which everyone knows when you start a business, there's no money.
Yeah, got to start
And
somewhere.
so I ended up getting a full-time salary job as a general manager for a restaurant, which was gruesome. and very long hours. I mean, your minimum was between 50 to 60 hours a week. And I had done that for a few years and then realized that when the time was right for me to go into doing what I wanted to do, then that's when I made the switch.
Yeah. When did you guys start your coffee businesses?
2010.
Ooh,
So this June is actually our 11-year anniversary.
wow. And did
I
you
know.
you started that when you were an agent, right? Like after you already started an agent? When tell us about that process or when that
I
started.
so we started Populous in 2010. That's when we moved back home and we started it in June of 2010. I was still in the restaurant industry, but we were working on our first home and renovating it. So even though I had my full-time job, I still had the spark that was keeping me going with the old home.
Yep.
And I ended up leaving in 2014, I think, is because I got my license in 2013
Gotcha.
and then left in 2014.
Nice.
What kind of gave
Sweet.
you guys the idea to start the cafe?
So we moved out to California with no plan, our poor parents. um, so I ended up finishing out school here. Andrew had left prior to me, and then he drove back, picked me up, and we went out there. And I actually landed a job within like the first week, and he came back, and I was so nervous because he said, "Hey, there's this coffee company that's opening up on Abbott Kinney. It's called Intelligentsia Coffee, and it's really cool. I'm going to start working there." And I was just kind of like, "Oh, okay. I really hope this works out." Like, so
Yeah.
nervous. He ended up becoming a manager, and they offered him to open up the Pasadena store. And then he ended up not taking that because he fell in love with coffee overall. And we knew we wanted to be back in Michigan long term. That staying out there was never our goal. So we decided, let's move back home. And he wanted to make sure that Michigan had good local roasted coffee, specialty coffee, because
Hmm.
we didn't really have a huge market for it. We were actually the second to open outside of Madcap.
Okay.
Yeah. So
So,
what?
yeah.
So tell us a little bit about your cafes. Kind of tell us a little bit more details on those.
Okay. So we have two cafes. Bay City, Michigan, obviously, that's our flagship store. We do everything from scratch in house, bagels, syrups, everything. We don't buy anything from the store. And it's right in the heart of downtown. So it's super special to us. And then our second location is actually in Petoskey, Michigan.
Huh.
It's kind of the town kind of mimics Bay City a little bit. So I think that that's why we actually fell in love with it. And it's currently closed right now just because of everything that's been going on, but we are tentatively reopening for the spring. So we're kind of getting our teeth sunk in and kind of starting all over new at that location.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But it's such a great location too, because that's also right in the heart of their downtown.
That's awesome. Hey, you can't
Yeah.
complain there, especially if the towns are kind of similar but they're
Yes.
definitely they're not close to each other.
No, not really. Nope.
Definitely not.
Do you guys go up there all the time where you're like, we have
It's
to get one
quite
there?
the drive. It's about a 2.5 hour drive for us. It's definitely easier in the summer because it's beautiful and we can take the kids, but it makes it for a long trek in the wintertime.
Oh,
Yeah,
yeah.
for
Yeah.
sure. Awesome. So what is some of the worst advice you've ever gotten?
The worst advice. Um, Honestly, I mean, I would probably say, when I was deciding to leave the group, they said, that's really just not a great decision. You should kind of stay with it. And I personally just didn't feel like that was like the advice that I needed. I always encourage our staff members on the coffee side to always do what's best for them. And they know what their life path is going to be. Like, your job right now is you need to do the best while you're here. But it doesn't mean that it's always your forever job. And I didn't feel like a group was my forever. And I'm glad that I went against the advice of staying in it, because I get to focus on what I like to do and explore on the real estate side, instead of just being somebody who opens up a lockbox and signs contracts. Like, I want to guide people into interior design projects, and really giving love to these old homes, because Bay City was built on the lumber era, and people don't take enough appreciation on that. And I think that it's important to showcase our history.
Yeah, that's awesome. So in the next couple of years, do you plan on getting another house to kind of
Yeah.
renovate?
Yes.
I
So
like it.
my next goal, I guess, in the next 5 years, which everything always changes. I mean, you can plan all you want, but you have to be flexible and adapt to different courses that kind of come up. But we have lived in our renovations the last three. And so my goal is to not live in a renovation. And the next home we redo will be one that we give away to a family, and I'm not, covered in dust 24/7.
Yeah.
Um, because that has literally been my life for the last 11 years.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I love it. I really do. But, it's risky. We could easily go and finance and flip a home. But my other thing that I like to kind of talk and preach about to a lot of people is, don't go into debt over a home. Like, you have a max budget. Let's try not to spend your max budget, because you never know what life can throw at you. And so my goal is to cash flow our next flip.
Nice. That's awesome.
Awesome.
I like it. So let's say you had to start over and with everything you have, all your knowledge you have, but all you had was $1,000. What would you spend that $1,000 on?
Oh, that question was so tough. Like, I literally, like, I'm sitting thinking about that, and I would still spend the portion of that $1,000 to get my real estate license. Absolutely. I think long term, it's probably one of the best investments that people can make, whether you're selling, buying, or both. And with the remaining balance, I would probably like to, I know this sounds so like silly. Um, I would love to build up my inventory of furniture and pieces that I could
Hmm.
redo and sell in the meantime of also selling real estate.
Okay.
So then I would have kind of like that inventory using for staging purposes, because there's a lot of people that ask for that, but our area just doesn't have enough to really hold a true staging company just yet.
Yeah.
So having that with the real estate would have made it, I think, even easier.
Do
That's
you
awesome.
stage the homes currently that you are putting on the market? Those ones, are you staging those for the homeowners?
So we aren't really a town at the point where we can bring in all brand new furniture.
Mm-hmm.
So what I like to do for people, because so many people are emotionally invested into their home and their belongings,
Yeah.
and I will come through kind of with, a very narrow eye sight of, this is what buyers are going to be turned off by, this is what they're going to be attracted to. So I kind of said, hey, let's move the couch this way. Let's take this end table out and put it here. And so I kind of will help or sellers navigate through their home of making it staged ready.
Okay. With what they
And
currently have.
yeah,
Okay.
with what they currently have. Yeah.
Yeah.
And then removing some of their photos, because sometimes it's a little too much. So you want their personal story to be removed from the home and make it more of a showcase of a blank canvas, kind of for the new buyer to come in and envision themselves in it.
Right.
Yeah.
Yep. That
Awesome.
makes sense. Yeah. 'Cause I picture myself like walking through a home. It would kind of hard for me to even envision with like all their wedding photos or yeah. I can see that for sure.
Right? You kind of get caught up. You're like, do I know that person? And then you're like not even
Right.
focusing on the
Yeah.
house.
Yeah.
Awesome. What is one of the best books you've read or could suggest for people to read?
So I'm not a huge person that reads books. Like in the recent years, I really haven't had any business books per se. But one that I feel like I can highly recommend that is such an easy read is Atomic Habits by
Mm,
James
yep.
Clear. Um, that book is so great.
Yeah.
And it's also really great for people who are like commuting too, because it's on Audible. So you can like listen to it in the car a lot, which I've done.
Hmm.
And you kind of, when you're listening and reading the book, going, this makes so much sense. Like, why haven't I done this? It's just the mindset of changing your inner dialogue on like topics. Like, instead of saying, I want to be healthy, I am going to be healthy, or I am healthy. You're changing, the title of whatever habit it is that you want to break. And I thought that that was such a great book. And Andrew read it too. And it is definitely like our top five.
Yeah. Awesome. I like it. How can people get a hold of you and where can they follow you at?
So I am on social media on Instagram and Facebook. I have my website that I actually just launched. So it's kind of still slightly in a working progress. It's homewithjustice.com. That will have the landing spot for the contact me, all of the other social media accounts, and also a blog that I'm starting.
Oh, that's awesome. Good for you.
Thanks.
Yeah. Awesome. Thanks for coming on today and sharing your story with us.
Yes, thank you guys for having me. I hope you have a great day.
Thanks. You too. Are these working?
All right. Is your-
There we go.
Oh, there we go. I think they're working. Should we tell them?
Mine keeps falling. It doesn't like my voice.
What do we got to tell them?
Subscribe.
Subscribe. What do we got to point at? Hey, I think there's a subscription button. Like,
It might be there.
might be right there too.
Somewhere.
Somewhere.
Find it. It's red.
Yeah. And it's
Red.
blue. It's green. I don't really know.
It's a color.
This mic isn't even attached. Did you plug these in? Well, I guess,
I wonder if they can hear us.
yeah. I wonder if they hear us. Well, we should probably tell them if they can hear us. We should probably tell them also give us a 5-star review if they're listening on Apple. That'd be cool.
5
5-star
stars,
review.
guys.
Share it with everybody they can think of.
We won't take
But-
4 stars.
I mean, Taylor, I don't even think these are on. I mean,
No, I don't think this is working.
This is not working.
Yeah.